Hello, and welcome to another episode of Women to Know. I am Susan, I'm your host, and I am a women's empowerment coach. For those of you who are joining us for the first time today, thank you. We appreciate that you are here and that you are holding space for us. The purpose of this video cast is to create space to share the stories of phenomenal, brave, inspiring women who have not only lived through something, experienced something, but have also learned a bunch of life lessons through that process, and now have a path of wanting to share those lessons with other women who are coming along in the journey to offer hope, inspiration, and practical tools that you can use in your life as well. My guest today is Kekua Kobashigawa, and she is the founder of HBIC, which you'll learn about in a little bit. I'm going to read to you her bio here, and then we're going to dive right in. Kekua is the best-selling author of Do Big Shit. I love that. She is a speaker and a mom. Kekua found herself at what she calls the WTF point of life, feeling lost and insignificant after experiencing betrayal and abuse. As she healed, she learned to break down her insecurities and generational patterns and became a powerful leader, not only for others, but for herself. She founded HBIC Development to mentor women who are ready to discover the powerful inner leader within themselves. Kekua, thank you and welcome. Thank you for being a guest and welcome to.
Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. What excites me so much about the conversation that we will have together is we have a shared passion and alignment for understanding how our patterns and how those things that we have internalized affect us and cause repetition in our life. And until we come to a place of uncovering those and identifying those, we can repeat the same cycle and circle, right? But before we get there, I'd love for you to share a little bit with our audience about your journey. What brought you to this place?
Well, like so many other women, in fact, more women than I could have conceived of at the time, I found myself in an abusive relationship. My ex-boyfriend was very manipulative, emotionally abusive. He was a narcissist. And I had no concept of any of those things prior to that. You know, that was stuff I had seen on TV or in a movie. Like, nobody does that for real, except they do. And as I was healing out of it, you know, the little by little process that it takes to let go of the shame that comes around it, because there's so much shame around abuse because we're conditioned to believe that it's our fault. Yes. We caused it. We did this or that. And that was, you know, the impetus for them to treat us the way they did, right? It was our fault. So there's a lot of shame around it. And the little by little process that I came through letting go of that shame and got to the point, when I got to the point that I could speak about it, because I had released enough of that, I found out heartbreakingly that it is like I wasn't alone. I was not alone at all. It was not a rare thing. It wasn't a thing that only happened to me. It actually is something that almost every woman will experience. Almost every woman you know will be abused in some way, shape, or form. And of course, you know, the most commonly known is physical abuse, domestic violence, but the emotional abuse still goes with that. The manipulation still goes with that, because all of the conditioning that I experienced in emotional abuse is the same conditioning that accompanies violence in all forms, whether it be domestic or, you know, parent-child or anything. There's always a form of conditioning that comes with it. So as I was healing from that, and I was doing the work to try to uncover why I was prone to it, why did it happen to me, how did I contribute to it, you know, all of the factors that led me there, I realized that it's so prevalent because women are so heavily conditioned into this societally. So much of what we are taught in womanhood, in motherhood, while it's beautiful inside of those contexts, it also pervades the entirety of our life, and it makes us very vulnerable to being abused, because the conditioning of motherhood is to take care, and the conditioning of womanhood is to be a mother. So the entirety of what it means to be a woman in the US means to take care of other people, to know their concerns, to take care of their needs, to anticipate things, to all of that. And that's, like I said, great inside of the context of motherhood, great inside of the context of a loving relationship. But it's so easy to have that taken advantage of, to be manipulated. So as I realized these things, and I started changing the way that I look at myself, I started evaluating what matters to me, how I should be treated, what I should accept, how I should treat others, all of these things. I started looking around, and I questioned to myself, why is my healing so unique when the situation that I came out of was not?
Mhm.
Right? Why am I seeing this? Why am I able to stop that pattern? Why am I able to break that cycle where so many women are not? When I figured out, it's first of all education, because we only know what we know. We can't know what we don't know. So I had education because I was in personal development. I was learning things for myself. I had entered personal development as a business owner, wanting to grow the business that I was in. And any business owner will tell you, like, the personal development that is important in order to succeed in business can revolutionize your entire life. And that's what it had done for me. And aside from that, I also had a huge supportive community in the women that I knew and loved. They were nothing like me. They weren't in the same business. They didn't love necessarily the same things, but they were supportive. And that's that was what mattered, that they loved me and supported me as who I am. So with those two things together, and sitting there thinking, okay, what can I do about this? Because I can't just be mad about it. I can't just be upset that, the personal development industry, while fantastic, is dominated by men. And while they are incredible at it, they're great. Everything that they create is fantastic. But when you're learning and you're trying to apply it to your life, you have to be able to identify with what it is that you're learning, what you're seeing, what story that lesson comes from. And so with not as many women in personal development, lots of women don't see themselves. They can't identify, so they don't believe in that possibility for themselves. That's something that other people do. That's something that other people are able to create. So, when I really thought about it, and I can't be mad if I'm not going to be part of the solution, I can't complain about the problem. So I decided to be as much of a solution as I could be. I decided to create a resource that would reach as far and wide as I possibly could for who I was. And I created my company so that I could start mentoring women. But of course, I can't mentor every single woman, and not every single woman needs me, right? Some women every woman needs someone that they can identify with, they can resonate with. So knowing that I couldn't touch every single woman, I wrote my book, because, well, then I can create a cheap resource that at least anyone who has Amazon has access. And that's just about the whole world.
Before we move into the book and what you do, I'd like to take a step back for a second, because part of my role as a women's empowerment coach is that I guide women through different life transitions, divorce being one of them. And so there are a number of women listening to this episode who are considering divorce, thinking about divorce, on the journey of divorce, and some of them identifying that they are in a relationship that might be with a narcissist or might be with a high conflict personality. Can you, if you feel comfortable, share some of what those characteristics were in your marriage that you identified your ex as a narcissist, that will help some of the women who are currently questioning, is this who I am married to? identify that. And then, well, and then I have a follow-up question. Okay, so if you could share some of what your experience was to help other women try and identify, is this what I'm experiencing?
Absolutely. Before I do, I just want to be really clear that my narcissistic ex wasn't my husband, because I do
Okay.
also have an ex-husband. So just so that no one
Thank you.
falls under the bus accidentally. So one of the principles that I actually teach about in the book, it comes from yoga, because I've been in the fitness world for a long, long time. One of the things, of course, that I studied was yoga. And in yoga, there is a principle called ahimsa. And it means, it's very trendy when they say do no harm. And it's deeper than that. It is do no harm, but it's not only to other things. It doesn't mean only other life forms or other people or other businesses or other whatever. It also means to yourself. Do no harm and allow no harm. So the way that I use this principle when I mentor women is, the question is, one, did he or she harm you? Yes or no. It's a very clear, right? No matter what the situation is, you can answer yes or no. Was I harmed by this behavior, this action, this statement? Was there harm done to me? And then the second half of that is, was it done on purpose? Because that's what matters. In any type of a relationship, because you and I are different people and we have different worldviews, because we have different life experiences, inevitably at some point, one of us will do something that harms the other. Not intentionally, but because I'm seeing it one way, I'm not thinking it's going to be harmful, but that doesn't negate the fact that you were harmed. So if you say to me, this hurt me, this caused this problem, or I felt this way about it, and I can resolve it, and I care about you, then I will. But if I said those things already knowing, or if I did those things, or if I caused something to happen to you, and I knew it was going to harm you, that's abuse. Like, bottom line, it's those two questions. Was I harmed in some way? And this doesn't mean only physical, because we're very much conditioned to believe that it's not abuse unless it's physical. And that's garbage.
It's bullshit. Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's bullshit.
It's absolute bullshit.
Call it what it is.
Was I harmed, and was it intentional? Because if this person has a pattern of hurting you intentionally, that person is abusing you. And then when you have that information, as simple as those two questions, then you can be a little bit more informed and think about, what do I need to do from here?
Yes.
What's right for me? Can I repair this? Can we, can we? Because now you have to have a conversation with that person. If you think that they haven't been doing it intentionally, then you have that conversation. You say, this action or behavior, it made me feel like this. It hurt me like this. This is the result of this. And if that person knew it, again, that's where you have to start evaluating, is this the right place for me? Can this become a healthy place for me? If it's not right now, can it become a healthy place for me? Do I want to remain in a situation where I am treated this way intentionally?
Wonderful framework for processing the context of the relationship, right? And I appreciate that you emphasize, again, we are so conditioned to think of only one type of abuse or control or coercion, but there are multiple ways that plays out. It could be physical, it could be financial, it could be sexual, it could be spiritual, it could, there's so many ways that it plays out in the relationship. And so I appreciate the framework of the questions that really do open space to give honest assessment and thought to that. Because the other part to this too, which I welcome your perspective on sharing, is the labels that then come with admission or sharing of experience, and how damaging labels are, because then they set up cycles of shame, silence, like stepping back, introversion. So part of that, part of it also involves culturally a shift in our language and in our creating safe space for honest, open conversations in which women and men can share the experiences that are happening within the context of any relationship, not just a marital relationship. So how were you able to move through or reframe the shame that you felt and experienced? You mentioned that as well earlier. What type of inner work did you do to move from a place of isolation to a place of empowerment by releasing that label?
It was a slow process,
Mm-hmm.
of course, as it is for anyone to do the inner work. It began with, while we were still together, and because of the things that I was learning, I actually would start to compare the things that he said and did, because he would, all of the things that he said were accusations, right? You were always this, you never that, you know, all of these things, telling me how terrible I am. And I started to think, how come nobody else says that to me? Like, no one else would say that to me. And then I really started to evaluate all of the things he says. And has any, like, can I validate these things? Has anyone else ever, you know, espoused the same beliefs about me? And I went through the things that he said one by one, and I really, really sat with myself. How factual is this? He said this. Well, did I do that? Did I do anything that could be construed as that? Did I do anything that somebody else might think was that? Right? One by one, I kind of went through those things, and I realized this is not my fucking fault. I didn't do this. And I still carried a little bit of responsibility for him, because I understand that much of these patterns that he has were developed in his childhood, because he did have some traumas in his childhood. And I know and I understand that, but he's not a child now. And if I am able to look at these things and look at my own childhood and think about my patterns of behavior and where they came from and want to change them, whether or not I'm able to change them quickly and effectively, if I have the want to change them, well, then so could you. I know where you come from. I understand those things. But if I am working on those things and I can be effective in changing them, then so can you. So if you don't, if we have these conversations and I present to you all of the learning that I am receiving, I present to you all of the things that are helping me change, and you intentionally choose not to, well, that's a problem. Now you are saying to me, I'd rather abuse you than work on myself. I'd rather abuse you and get what I want than love you. And it hurts so much to sit in that moment.
Yeah.
And to hear a person say, it's more important to me to get what I want than it is to love you, knowing that it hurts you. So as painful as it was, that was the beginning of letting go of some of that shame, because he knew what he was doing. He was doing it on purpose. He admitted to it. And I came to realize in that little span of time, because this happened over, I would say these conversations happened over a couple of months where it really clicked. And I said to myself, this is not fair. This is not right. This is not a way that you speak to people. This is not how you should be treated. And I, little by little, again, I started to admit to people that he would say or do this, because, you know, when you're in a relationship, you want your other person to look good. I can't look good if you don't look good. If I disparage you, you look like shit, yes, but then I'm attached to you, so I do too. So there was a whole lot of that. And little by little, I would allow those things to come to light. and other people would go, oh, right. And that was kind of my, I was right. I was right. This isn't how it should be. And that little process. And then, once he was gone and I started working much harder on myself, no longer interested in trying to help him fix himself. And then as I mentioned earlier, I had that heartbreaking realization that this is so common.
Yes.
And the behavior, not just for us to be prevalent and prone, but for men like that to be knowledgeable about what they're doing, intentional, and like the blame just fell away. Like, this is not my fault. Do I have some culpability for allowing things? Yes. But I didn't know about them. I didn't know what you were doing. At the point that I figured it out or started to figure out, I didn't really know all the answers, but at that point, I started to take steps to change the situation. And so when I look back at those things, like factually, like on it, like if I was not me, if I was talking to somebody else, what would I say in this situation? And I would say, it's not your fucking fault. That was the biggest key to releasing that blame for myself.
So much of this is the repetition of patterns, whether unconsciously or when you're aware, because it's comfortable. Right. And so part of it is becoming aware that these are the dynamics that are present. And then once you are aware, there are then choices to be made moving forward, and conversations and consequences, positive or negative, right? And one of those can be, I accept where I am, and I accept the opportunity to learn, and I accept the opportunity to grow, and I accept the opportunity to implement boundaries, and I accept a evolution into personal growth. And then there's the other side, which is also a choice of, this is comfortable. And so I'll sit in comfort because that's easier right now and takes less fear to attention. There's so many reasons, and there's no shade being cast on anybody, because we all have experiences that we bring to the table and that sometimes cause us to stay stuck in some situations. Yet a large part of the work that you do is helping women to uncover those patterns of sitting in that place of discomfort, so they can recognize the patterns that are present. Can you share with us the work? What does HBIC stand for? HBIC Development. I'm dying to know, like, what does it stand for? What is your framework? How do you support women? Like, all the things. Let's just start there.
Before I do, and I'm gonna just be upfront that I have ADHD, and you might have to ask me that question again. But before we move on, I want to point out something that you said that is really, really huge. You talked about how one of the other options is to stay in that because it's comfortable, because it's really familiar. So for anyone who is listening, who is in that space of awareness, but unable to break the pattern, because awareness is just the first step. Just because you realize it doesn't mean it will stop, right? It's only the first step. So for somebody who's listening and they're sitting in that awareness and not understanding why they can't break that familiarity pattern, part of that, and that's again somewhere some of the abuse comes from, or the guilt of the abuse, is because I know it's happening, and I quote unquote, I keep letting it happen, right? Part of that is because the conditioning and the conditioning that comes with it makes you believe not only that you deserve it, but that you are incapable of anything else. You are undeserving of anything else. So like a computer program, if that's what's running in your mind, because that's what you've been taught, you're not capable of change. You're not capable of bigger. You're not capable of better. Even though you are aware of the situation, you might remain stuck and unable because of all of that condition, because your computer programming is telling you that it's basically impossible. and you won't be able to take that first step. So if that's you, I want you to take a moment and recognize that it is you and that that is a lie. It will be very hard to change it, and you will be best served by reaching out to somebody who can help you. And that might be someone who is a therapist. It might be someone like myself who is a mentor. It might be someone who specializes in all of that conditioning, counseling for domestic, like find somebody. Even if it's just a support group on like Facebook, if you don't have the money to pay for therapy or other forms of coaching, there are ways. Know that that is complete bullshit. You can do it, and you just might need a little bit of help.
Yeah. Good point and good word of encouragement. Now, tell us about HBIC Development.
It's one of my favorite things. Okay, so HBIC stands for Head Bitch in Charge.
Love it.
Because when we were growing up, and I know it's still true for the youth of today, but when we were growing up, I'm sure you remember that women were not supposed to be loud. Women were not supposed to be bold. We're not supposed to be aggressive. We're not supposed to have ambition. It was heavily conditioned into us in our generation. So if you are someone who's outspoken, if you speak up for yourself, all these things that we now know are good, strong characteristics, things that lead to success, you were called a bitch, and a bitch is bad, right? You don't want, oh my God, I don't want to be called a bitch. But people put words, like you said earlier, labels, they put phrases and energy on things. This is a part of manipulation that they don't want you to lead into, because it doesn't serve them.
Yeah.
So when I came to that realization, I thought, but I want to speak up for myself. I want to respect myself. I want to have boundaries. I want to pursue things. I want to have ambition. So if you're going to call me a bitch because I am those things, then I am a bitch. Let's go.
And what is the framework that you use, or what is the process that you use when you are mentoring women through your coaching?
So it's very foundational. Unfortunately, there's a lot of, it's well-meaning, but it's not effective. There are many, I want to use the right word. There are women who have moved into the coaching space because they've experienced this, men and women who've moved into the coaching space because they've experienced this, and they want to help others. But without the proper framework, you can't fix one little thing. If the foundation to your house is not strong, and you find that the house is susceptible because one side is leaning down, or it's always flooding, if something like that is happening in the physical world, it's very easy to see it. And you'll understand, okay, I need to build a new foundation. I need to fix from the bottom up. I can't just repair. I can't just paint. I can't just put new drywall. And there's so much of the industry that is, it's like it wants to fix this little thing. It wants to put a Band-Aid on what got hurt.
Yeah.
And you can put a Band-Aid on it, but that won't change the cycle. So you will end up over and over and over again experiencing the same things. And then you'll need bigger and bigger Band-Aids every time, because it progressively gets worse. So my program is it's foundational. It feels regressive when you first start, because it feels like, well, you should already know this. Well, how come you haven't thought about this before? Oh my gosh. But it's the key to building up strong, is to start at the foundation. So it's things like, what are your values? Like, what do you really care about? What matters to you? Because so many women don't know. I can't tell you how many women I've spoken to, and women that I have coached, who, what do you want? What do you want to have in your life? What are your dreams? And the answer is, I don't know. I never had a chance to think about it. And they really literally don't know themselves. So we come all the way down from the ground up. Who are you? Exactly where are you in your life? From there, then you can conceptualize, what do you actually want? Are you a mom? What kind of relationship do you want with your kids? Are you married? What kind of relationship do you want with your spouse? Are you single? What kind of man would you like to look for? What do you want in your business or in your career? Like, let's really think about what would make you happy. What's the ideal? And then from there, we can go A to B. What's the path? How do we get from one to the other? And we use a rubric that is a reminder every single day of what's important, because now you've set your values, you've set your goals, you know what it means to respect others. Let's apply that to yourself. Because if, one of the things I ask them to do is think of a heroine for themselves. And sometimes it's like Wonder Woman, and sometimes it's an actress, sometimes it's a made up character. And that's your best friend now. Yeah. So everything that you do, your best friend's going to know about. So if this person would allow this for themselves, then maybe it's probably good for you. But if the situation that you're in, Bestie here, Wonder Woman, would not allow this, she would do something about it. She would put an end to the situation, or she would speak up. That's what you have to do, because it's so hard for women to just start doing things that they've never known how to do. We say, love yourself. We say, respect yourself. We say these things all day long, but if no one has been taught how to do it, it's like we're just like the Peanuts characters. Wah, 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 wah. It doesn't mean anything. So you have to show them how to do all of the things that they know they should do, but can't, because no one has ever taught them how.
And that goes back to uncovering the conditioning and the patterns that are in place too, because as women, we receive messages all over the place about putting others first, of martyring yourself to make sure that everyone else is well cared for, and the house is this, and the business is that, and the perception in the community is this. There's just so much mental space and emotional space that all of that conditioning takes up, and it takes a while sometimes to clean that out, understand that it's there, awareness, and then move through it and deconstruct it, and then come to the place of loving self enough to say, I can take up space, and it's okay that I take up space, and it's not selfish to say, I need time, I want, or no, I don't want to do that, and not have to give any explanations for why you're not going to that event, or you're not going to that dinner, or you're not but that comes down to the very important work, that foundational work of recognizing who you are, what you care about, what your core, who you are at your core, your passions, your values, because that influences all of the energy that then comes out of you, right? And so when you think about, the women who will be listening to this, span the spectrum of background and experiences. And so who is the type of client that is best served through your programs?
I mentor women into leadership.
Okay.
And the mistake that a lot of people make, though, is they think leadership means being a manager, right? Being a business owner, being a boss. And you can think about it that way, but leadership starts here. It starts with you. It starts leading yourself. That's what makes you capable of being a leader to others. That's what's going to make you, if you are a manager, to be a good manager. If you are a business owner, what's going to make you a stronger business owner is if you are leading yourself. So most often the women that I work with that come to me they are moms, they are business owners. Sometimes they're entrepreneurs as opposed to entrepreneurs, but more often than not, they are business owners in their own right.
Okay.
And, so they know what it means to be diligent with something. They know what it means to commit to something, and they see inside of themselves that they need to do more. They know that they can do more, but they don't yet know how. And that's what they come for, is the how.
So for those women who are listening, and this is resonating for them, and they are not only seeing themselves in you, they are recognizing where they want to be and are not sure how to get there. How can those women connect with you? Where can they find you? How do they reach you?
They can, my website is Kekuak, so it's my first name and my initial, kekuak.com. All of my links are there. I'm very active on Facebook, Instagram, and then TikTok in that order. But there's also a contact form right on the website that they can use, and we can I do discovery calls that are just about exploring if what I offer is right for you, if you are right for me, if we resonate with each other. If not, do I know someone that would fit you well? And whether or not coaching and or mentorship is really right for you, because sometimes what we need is actually therapy or some type of a deeper program that will uncover deeper things, because as therapeutic as coaching and mentorship can be, it's definitely not a replacement for someone who needs therapy.
Yes, good point. And that comes from a place of love, and that comes from a place of recognizing there are different tools that you can tap into through therapy that will serve you better until you get to a foundational place, and then mentoring and coaching can come in with that. So for those who are listening and are feeling like they want a little bit more, they're feeling unsettled in some way, and are not certain they have the courage to take the next step, what piece of advice do you have for those women?
My favorite thing to leave people with is you deserve everything you're willing to work for.
Yeah.
Period. If you want it, if you dream it, and you're willing to work for it, you deserve it.
Love that. Kekua, thank you so much for sharing space today, for sharing a little bit of your story. I know that is going to, and your experiences, I know that is going to resonate with so many listeners. Thank you for sharing the truth that we possess within us as women, the possibility, the inspiration, the creativity, and the resiliency to go after and achieve what we set our minds to, and that we don't have to stay in places that were put upon us in one way, shape, or form.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. And so for those of you who are listening, sorry, a note came up that it was going to do an update. So I said, no. So for those of you who are listening and or viewing, you will find in the caption below all of the information that you need, as well as Kekua's bio. So you'll find all the information you need if you want to reach out to her, which I highly recommend that you do. Get on a call and see. For those of you that this resonated, for those of you that something is stirring in you hearing this, for those of you who feel it's time to take the next step, we extend an invitation for you to prioritize yourself, give yourself that permission, and do that. Reach out. Thank you so much, Kekua.